home now than his own. But that was as it should be. Jonathan was the eldest son and rightful heir. Nicholas went into his father's study to find him staring out the window.
"Ah, Nicholas, I suppose you will be going back with the next ship heading to the peninsula, eh?"
He cringed inside, but army life was his fate, unless he were to sell his commission. He had thought to make the church his profession, but his father had pressured him since he was a small boy to become an army officer. A clergyman, he had said, had no chance of making his fortune. He had joined the army more to please his father than anything else. Over the many days and weeks of his convalescence, he'd had plenty of time to ponder what a foolish reason that had been. "Yes, father, I leave in a week. But at present I need to ask you, who do you know at the War Office?"
"The War Office?"
His father's voice boomed, seeming to fill the entire room. He stroked his chin.
"McDowell of the Westmoreland MacDonalds, a second son who is in the Foreign Office. Then there's the Griffiths' third or fourth son. But he's little more than a clerk in the Home Office, I understand. Why do you ask?"
Nicholas cringed inwardly at the way his father qualified men as to their birth order. Just the way he said the word second son showed that he held them in lesser esteem, while third or fourth son carried even more of a stigma. Nicholas had always known that in his father's eyes he was lesser than his brother Jonathan, and the making of Nicholas's military career was his father's pet task, much like altering the nursery and children's rooms at Glencove Abbey was Isabella's. "I was only curious." For some reason, he didn't want to tell his father about the diary.
"Not thinking of transferring to the War Office, are you? There's no glory in that, and you could hardly make your fortune there."
His father picked up his pipe and began stuffing it with tobacco.
"Little chance enough to make your fortune in the army, even in wartime. But at the War Office, no chance at all. Speaking of which—"
He paused to puff on his pipe as he lit it.
"Is it time for me to pay for your advancement to captain's rank?"
"Not yet, father." He frowned, but his father would never notice, nor would he notice the wry tone of Nicholas's voice. "I need more experience."
"More experience?"
his father bellowed.
"You've had nearly a year's worth of fighting and been wounded besides. Another year, my boy, and then it will be high time you were made a captain at least, perhaps even a major."
"I appreciate your interest, father, in furthering my military career." This elicited a grunt from his father. He was eager to leave before his father began to outline plans and strategies for Nicholas's future as a great army officer. Besides, he had the information he needed. He headed back to write a letter to Philip McDowell, with whom he had a friendly acquaintance. In his short letter, he requested to meet with him as soon as possible. After making sure his letter would be sent by the twopenny post and arrive later that day, he went to his trunk and found the diary. He undid the metal clasp over the brown leather cover and opened the book. He carefully flipped the pages. Most of them were blank. But when he came to some writing, he paused to read it. There was some unimportant talk of Beecham taking the post-chaise for a visit to his grandmother, as well as a description of a bird's nest he had found. Nicholas skipped a few pages until he came to one that made no sense. The passage was filled with what looked like words, but instead of words, the letters and numbers and symbols seemed to be strung together randomly. He studied it more closely, but there was no sense to be made of it. He turned the page and found more of the same, just gibberish at best, undecipherable code at worst. Code. Perhaps this diary was written in some sort of code. He leaned closer and searched through the entire book. He could not make out a single word of the rest of it. He used his fingers to probe the inside of the covers, looking for a hidden pocket where something had been concealed, but there was nothing. All the information Nicholas had was that the diary had belonged to Richard Beecham, now dead, and the name Garrison Greenfield. If what was written inside the diary was sensitive information,